My name is Alex, and my life has begun a period of amazing changes. It's all thanks to meeting Lisa, a sweet, witty, and incredibly beautiful girl. We met by chance in line at a coffee shop and started talking. It turned out we had a lot of common interests and the same outlook on life. From that fateful meeting, we began to see each other more and more often. Walks together, movies, long conversations about everything over a cup of coffee. Every minute next to Lisa filled me with joy and anticipation of something wonderful. Less than a month passed before we realized that our feelings had grown into something more than just friendship. The first kiss, the first timid confessions of love, it all seemed like a magical dream that you didn't want to wake up from. Every day we grew closer, entrusting each other with our most secret thoughts and dreams. I realized that I had truly met a kindred spirit and wanted to tie my fate with Lisa's. One day, walking in the park, Lisa said she wanted to introduce me to her parents. She had told me so much about them that it already seemed like I knew them personally. Lisa tenderly described her hardworking father and her cheerful mother, Margaret, who was her best friend. "I'm sure they will love you as much as I do," Lisa said with a radiant smile. I had no doubts about that either. With such a bright and positive attitude towards life as Lisa had, she simply couldn't have bad parents. We agreed that this weekend we would go visit them together in the suburbs. I was looking forward to this meeting, anticipating getting to know the people who raised my dear Lisa and were her reliable support. At that time, I could not even imagine what an unexpected turn our relationship was in for. On Saturday, Lisa and I went to her parents' house. The house she grew up in turned out to be very cozy and well kept. It was clear that people who valued family comfort lived here. We were greeted at the doorstep by Margaret, Lisa's mother. She was a very attractive and stately woman in her 40s, with the same green eyes and charming smile as her daughter. She warmly hugged me, as if I were an old acquaintance. "Come in, Alex, make yourself at home," she said melodiously, inviting us inside. The house was filled with the aromas of fresh pastries and flowers. We settled in the living room, and Margaret began to ask me about my life, work, and hobbies. She was very easy to talk to, and we immediately struck up a casual conversation. Lisa, beaming with happiness, hugged my arm. After a while, Margaret looked a little embarrassed. "It seems Lisa's father will have to stay late at work. He asked me to convey his apologies, but I'm sure you'll still get a chance to meet." "No worries. That just means we'll have more time to get to know each other." I smiled, trying to maintain the relaxed atmosphere. Lisa also took the news calmly. Margaret inquired if we were hungry from the trip and invited us to the kitchen. There we were greeted by an appetizing apple pie and fragrant coffee. As we enjoyed the treats, the conversation jumped from one topic to another, from Lisa's childhood memories to the latest world events. I noticed that Margaret was giving me long, studying looks, and her compliments sometimes sounded too meaningful. "Lisa has great taste in men," she said with a smile, pouring me more coffee. Her words and gaze sent shivers down my spine. The atmosphere was gradually becoming more and more strange. Margaret seemed to accidentally touch my hand when passing a cup, and these touches lasted a little longer than permissible. Her compliments also became more personal and ambiguous. Lisa didn't seem to notice anything. She enthusiastically told her mom about our plans for the summer and our recent trip out of town. And I increasingly felt the tension growing between Margaret and me, and I couldn't understand its nature. After lunch, Lisa went out to the garden to talk on the phone with her best friend and share her impressions of our visit. Margaret and I were left alone. An awkward pause hung in the air, which I tried to break with a meaningless phrase about the weather. "You know, Alex, I'm so glad that Lisa has found such a wonderful young man like you," Margaret said softly, looking me straight in the eye. Her gaze made me uncomfortable. "Thank you, your opinion is very important to me," I replied politely, trying to keep my distance. But Margaret didn't seem to intend to stop there. She moved closer to me and cooed, "You know, nowadays it's so hard to meet a truly decent and interesting man. Lisa is very lucky." With those words, Margaret covered my hand with her palm. I felt my heart pounding wildly in my chest. What was happening clearly went beyond the scope of a normal conversation between a future son-in-law and mother-in-law. "Margaret, I'm flattered, but I don't think this is appropriate," I stammered, trying to gently free my hand. But she only squeezed my fingers tighter. "Come on, Alex, We're both adults. Don't you feel any attraction to me at all?" she whispered, leaning so close to me that I could feel her breath on my cheek. At that moment, footsteps sounded. Lisa was returning from outside. Margaret instantly pulled away from me and pretended to be straightening the napkins on the table. I froze, unable to believe the reality of what had happened. When Lisa entered, we both tried to act as if nothing had happened, but I could feel the tension literally sparking in the air. I wanted to leave as soon as possible and forget about Margaret's strange behavior. However, I realized that I couldn't just run away. It would raise unnecessary questions from Lisa and could ruin our relationship. I needed to keep calm and try to stay away from Margaret. But even when Lisa was around, I could feel her mother's intense gaze on me. Margaret seemed to be throwing me a silent challenge, and it sent shivers down my spine. How could I have gotten into such an absurd and awkward situation? The rest of the evening passed as if in a fog. Lisa, Margaret, and I pretended that everything was fine, chatting casually and laughing at some stories. But the tension between Margaret and me didn't go anywhere. It seemed to only thicken with each passing minute. Later that night, Lisa went upstairs to prepare a room for us. Margaret volunteered to help me make up the couch in the living room. Finding herself alone with me, she immediately pressed her whole body against me, pinning me to the wall. "I want you, Alex. Let's not waste time," she whispered, covering my neck with kisses. Her hand slid under my shirt, caressing my skin. For a moment I got lost in the sensations, in the languid bliss of her touch. My mind refused to believe in the reality of what was happening. But when her hand descended to my zipper, it was as if I came to my senses. "No, Margaret, we can't. This is wrong," I breathed, trying to push her away from me. She only pressed closer, wrapping her arms around my neck. "No one will know. It will be our little secret," Margaret purred, kissing me passionately on the lips. For a second I responded, seized by a rush of passion, but then I immediately pulled away. At that moment, the door creaked upstairs. Lisa had finished the preparations and was about to come down. Margaret instantly jumped away from me and pretended to be fluffing the pillows on the couch. When Lisa entered the room, I was still trying to catch my breath and calm my wildly beating heart. I hoped my confusion wasn't reflected on my face. We wished Margaret good night and went upstairs. Finally finding myself alone with Lisa, I hugged her tightly, feeling overwhelmed by a sense of guilt mixed with relief. The next morning at breakfast, Margaret and I exchanged only the most necessary phrases. Each pretended that yesterday's strange episode simply hadn't happened, but unspoken words and tension literally sparked in the air. "Thank you for your hospitality, Margaret. It was very nice to meet you," I said politely as we stood on the doorstep about to leave. "I was glad to meet you too, Alex. I hope you'll visit us again," she replied with a slight smile. There was a hint of regret and sadness in Margaret's gaze. Lisa hugged her mom tightly in farewell, and we started on our way back. The whole trip, I thought about what had happened and tried to make sense of my feelings. I was definitely charmed by Margaret and her persistent signs of attention. I can't deny that some part of me wanted to give in to temptation and respond to her passion, but my mind told me it would be a terrible mistake. A moment of weakness could destroy my relationship with Lisa, which was priceless to me, and the very fact of a secret affair with her mother seemed wrong and dishonest. I made a decision to leave what happened in the past and never think about it again. My moral compass told me that my loyalty to Lisa and our sincere feelings were much more important than a fleeting infatuation. Upon returning home, I hugged Lisa even tighter and promised myself that I would cherish and protect our relationship. No outside temptations should come between us. This trip taught me a lesson. You always need to remember what is truly important and not give in to momentary weaknesses. Only in this way can you build a truly strong and happy relationship based on love and trust. As for Margaret, I hope she also realized the inadmissibility of what happened between us and will never put me in such an awkward position again. Perhaps she was driven by loneliness or a midlife crisis pushing her to questionable acts. But that's no excuse for trying to seduce your own daughter's boyfriend. I want to believe that our meeting served as a lesson for her. You need to value your family and respect the feelings of loved ones. Destroying your daughter's relationship for the sake of a momentary whim is the height of selfishness and irresponsibility. I am grateful to fate that this situation did not go too far and did not lead to irreparable consequences. Now I appreciate Lisa and our love even more because it helped me withstand temptation and make the right decision. We have a whole life ahead of us that we will build together, honestly, openly, with respect for each other. And no ghosts of the past or outside temptations can come between us. This trip became a test of strength for me, and I'm glad I managed to pass it with dignity. One can only hope that Margaret also learned the right lessons from what happened and will be able to establish a sincere relationship with her daughter. As for Lisa and I, we will cherish and strengthen our love because it's worth it. Together we will overcome any difficulties and temptations on the way to our shared happiness. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.